Alert! He scans his surroundings for any clue as to what hellish machination just made that noise. Turning to his left, there is a small mound of snow, and to his right is just an open area of nothing. He can't see anything from the direction he is coming from, and where he was going before. That can only mean one thing. Whatever made that noise is either underground, or over at that small mound in the distance. Maybe it even is the pile of snow. He turns his whole body to the distant heap. Whatever lurks there, he has to see it. At least that's what his instincts tell him. Don't give them the jump on you. His heart beats up to his throat. He can hear his blood rushing through his ears, and his eyes are laser focused on that pile of snow. He slowly grabs the axe in his back with his left hand. That was no bear. A second scream, loud and booming. A sound that again reminds him of either screeching car tires, mixed with a guttural heavy metal rooster. If there is something like the sounds of hell, that would be it. His first thought just confirmed itself. The source of the screeching lies beyond that snow pile. He grabs his flare gun with his hurt arm and cocks it. He has a plan. Maybe he can deter it, whatever that thing is. Wolves can be scared off, so why not that thing as well? It's the best choice he has right now. He gets up from his crouching stance, takes a deep breath, and shouts as loud as he humanly can. Rah! It stings, and he has to cough afterwards, but that was loud. He didn't even know himself that he could scream that loudly. Hoping for the best, he just stands there, his axe resting on his shoulder, and his gun trained at the pile, praying that he managed to scare it off. And he doesn't have to wait long for a reaction. It screams for the third time, much louder this time, in an even more guttural and deep tone than before. Whatever it is, it sounds pissed. Just then, he can make out sounds of faint shuffling and snow crunching. A moment later, something emerges from the mound. Fuck. His plan of scaring it off immediately falls apart as he realizes what is happening. 1. It is not a bear. 2. It is still bear-sized. 3. He is still screwed. 4. He might have to fight for his life soon. A hulking mass of crimson fur and sheer muscle emerges from behind the comparatively small mound. It is huge, taller than a horse, with the build of a nightmarish tiger from hell. Dark chitinous plates cover the top of his narrow and sharp head, as well as the upper parts of his forelegs and back. Its huge razor-sharp teeth undoubtedly tell of its predatory nature as it looks directly at him, releasing another blood-curdling roar. He just poked the figurative bear, and it really didn't like it. His fight or flight kicks in, and it decides on fighting. He can never, ever dream of outrunning that monstrosity, but he might still have a chance, whatever that thing might be. He has one last trick up his sleeve, and he's praying it will work. He clenches his fist around the handle of his axe, ready to swing at it with all of his might, if he has to. The beast rears up on its incredibly strong-looking hinds, easily reaching more than 4 meters in height, and then starts sprinting towards him with incredible speed. He has to collect himself for a moment, as its sheer presence screams death at him. It takes him a moment to be able to think again, as his body seizes up from the sheer terror the beast induces. By reflex, he closes his right eye, and turns his face slightly away as he pulls the trigger. Bang! An incredibly bright projectile launches from the barrel of his plastic gun, straight at the monstrosity. It braces its front legs, trying to slow down and evade the frightening mini-sun coming straight at it. But even its comparatively incredible agility is not enough. The burning hot projectile impacts his face, causing it to cry out in both pain and panic. He uses the gap that has just arisen and prepares for his next maneuver by slightly bending his knees, as his mind starts switching over into a primal survival mode. The beast comes to a stop, shaking his head violently, but the nasty chemicals won't shake loose. Meanwhile, he tosses the flare gun to his side and grabs the knife from his left thigh with an awkward reach around with his right hand. He doesn't even register the pain right now. The monster seems to have set his eyes upon him anew, as it stops the violent shaking and instead begins charging him anew. Whatever it is, that thing is persistent for some reason, unlike what he had hoped for. It closes the remaining 30 or so meters in a flash, almost catching him off guard, but his quick reflexes allow him to barely dodge to its side, stabbing his knife into it. There was another bestial cry of pain, as the knife probably hit some soft tissue. He has to correct his footing, and he stumbles and almost trips after his last-moment dodge. Did he do it? Did he just dodge his attack? This whole situation feels unreal to him. The enraged creature grinds to a halt and turns to face him. Orange liquid starts dripping down on the snow below it. It is hurt, but it's not going to let him off that easily. With surprising agility, it leaps forward, trying to pounce on him. He is still caught by the reality of this situation, and there is too little time to completely dodge away from it. The wind gets knocked out of his lungs as the giant beast lands on top of him, violently throwing him on his back. Crack! Something in his body just gave. That monstrosity is on top of him now, pinning down his right leg. The pressure is immense, but he can still move most of his body. He lets out a terrified cry as he desperately swings his axe as hard as he can at the mass on top of him, saliva and orange blood dripping on his face as he does so. His axe impacts the beast with a sickening wet squelching sound, combined with a disturbing cracking of chitin plates being split. It is an ugly struggle of two desperate beings, both hell-bent on defeating their opponent. The beast rears in pain, as the hardened metal violently splits his tissue. At a reflex, it lashes out towards him with one of its massive clawed paws. A sharp, stinging pain sets in as it leaves deep gashes in his chest area, and a warm sensation spreads across his chest. He cries out in pain, wildly kicking with his left leg and ripping the axe from his side, swinging again. Crack! Another howl of pain. This time he hit the right side of the beast's head, taking out two of the three eyes on that side. The monstrosity jumps off of him, quickly retreating a few meters. He screams in terror, trying to get up again. Halfway through, he gets knocked a few meters, landing on his belly. This is not going well. Unable to see what the monster is doing right now, he can only hear his cries of pain and agitated breathing behind him. Gritting his teeth, he rolls on his back, realizing that his axe got knocked out of his grip. He frantically searches for it around him, and quickly finds it. It landed about 3 meters away from him, its handle sticking out from the snow, reaching up into the sky. He shakes his head as he tries to get up again, focusing his attention back at the wounded beast. It seems to be circling around him, observing him, blood dripping down from his head and torso. This is his chance, if he manages to get to his axe in time. This is only going to end one way. He already knows that it's strong enough to penetrate his armor. He could defeat it with a good hit. He pushes up on the ground, leaving behind a red spot on the pure white snow. Giving it all he has left, he sprints towards his axe. He can hear the beast getting back into action as he lunges forward. Grabbing its handle and using his momentum, he spins around and jams his axe savagely into the side of his head. It gets knocked to the side, not prepared for the sheer force of the impact. He uses this opportunity to attack the down beast, granting it the mercy of a swift end, and going straight for its head. All three of his eyes that are currently facing him focus on him as he delivers a blow. He could swear that they are trying to tell him something, those eyes. In that split second, he can see it staring straight at him, and a horrible feeling wells up inside of him. Crack! The axe impacts his head, but it glances off the heavy armor and gets ripped from his hand, flying off again. The beast then suddenly pushes itself back up, throwing him off his feet and onto his back again. He hits his head and hears his teeth violently impacting each other. Dazed with a knock on his head, he puts his right arm on his chest, pushing himself up into a seating position with the other. His breathing is completely out of control, as he almost starts hyperventilating, with his heart racing at what feels like 200 beats per minute. Completely drained of any reserves from the struggle, he accepts his fate as he searches for the beast. But it looks like he is not the only one whose body is about to give out. The beast seems to have fared about as well as him, dragging itself back into his lair, instead of walking on in all of its fours, leaving behind an increasingly intense trail of orange blood. His heartbeat drowns out all the sounds of his surroundings, and the cold air stings in his lungs as he desperately gasps for air, taking in the scene. Giving it all he has left, he laboriously gets back up again, looking for his axe. He finds it a few paces away from him, slightly sunken into the snow and covered in orange blood. Limping over to it, he grabs the handle with grim determination. He looks over to its lair and can no longer see the beast, only the trail of blood it left behind. Following the trail, he fights through the pain and grips the handle with such force it feels like it might break at any moment. He hates this. He hates this so much. All of this goes against his very being, yet he is still forced to do it. Finally reaching the entry to his hideout, he looks down into the opening. A shallow broad tunnel leads further down into the compacted layers of snow. Careful not to slip, he hobbles down the slope. It doesn't take him long to reach the main chamber of his burrow. At the end of the large chamber lies the exhausted beast, bleeding and collapsed on the floor. He can hear his ragged breathing and pained cries from across the room, almost reminding him of a dog whimpering, but with a sickening burble mixed underneath. It is done for. The sounds of his desperate struggle pain his soul. He lifts the axe above his head as he creeps up to it, ready to finish the poor thing off. But then he spots something. Something that completely throws him off track. A tiny ball of crimson fur, with 6 eyes, dark chitinous plates on top of his head, his 4 stubby legs, and his back. A baby beast. That death machine has a young. It nuzzles its parent, both of them exchanging heart-wrenching sounds of distress as the parent slowly drifts off into oblivion. The side flashes scenes from his past in his mind's eye, scenes he will never forget. The axe falls on the floor and lands on his side. The realization of what he just did hits him. His primal rage is replaced by deep regret and sadness. He just killed a parent, a loving mother or a fierce father who's ready to sacrifice everything for their offspring. And he just killed it, like a goddamn monster. He slowly moves to the side of its head that still has all of its eyes left. As he does so, he can see the beast frantically trying to get back up again, trying to defend his offspring against the violent attacker that's going in for the kill, but it lacks the strength to do so. All it can do is pathetically whimper and struggle, as its inevitable undoing moves ever closer towards it, and the most important thing in the world. He drops down on his knees next to his massive head, tears rolling down his face. He presses his forehead against an area next to his eyes, his left hand stroking for his fur as a horrible feeling rises in his throat. At first his panic rises at the sudden touch, but it quickly gives up its struggles for its lack of energy. "I'm so sorry," he whispers, even more tears rolling down his face. His massive body shifts with every single laboured breath. The stench of his blood fills the chamber, and he can hear its desperate cries. He did this. He made this creature experience pure anguish with his own hands, and for what reason? He looks it in the eyes, and the beast gazes back into his very soul. All of his beautiful deep black eyes, that are still left, are directly looking into his for a few seconds, before turning to his young. The baby beast yowls at his dying parent, desperate to help them. The parent softly snorts at his little one, before it closes its eyes and stops breathing. A crushing guilt weighs on him, and he completely breaks down, sobbing into his fur. His words are barely recognizable by now. "I'm so sorry."